Shifting focus to India's exports to Bangladesh, which are witnessing a significant dip due to the volatile political and economic situation in the neighboring country. Recent data reveals that India's engineering exports to Bangladesh fell by nearly 8% in the first 7 months of this financial year as compared to the same period last year. Not just that, the exports of imitation jewellery and those exports to Bangladesh fell to 35%. Now, last year, India's exports to Bangladesh stood at around $11.3 billion. How will they shape up for the current year? How much of a hit will it take on that number? To make sense of that, we have Mr. Rakesh Khar, editor, English News Now Live, now joining us here. Rakesh, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. Bangladesh is in crisis mode, and that's, it seems to be like, a situation where the collateral damage seems to be India's exports.
Absolutely, Krishna. I think, it's a smaller problem in the sense that Indian exporters are being hit. The bigger problem is Islamicized, Bangladesh, or a Pakistanized Bangladesh, which is extremely economically vulnerable, makes India extremely difficult, puts India in a very difficult situation. Because if you have neighbors who are not fundamentally economically strong, from Sri Lanka to Nepal, Nepalese leadership is in China asking for grants versus loans, loans versus grants. There is a huge politics playing around that. So the entire region in that sense is economically unstable, politically unstable. From that perspective, India has to be extremely careful about how the situation pans out. My sense is that, when the gentleman who was supposed to lead the interim government came in, he has a huge history of being a top economist. He got a Nobel for his, credit, so to say, originality, distributing credit in a manner that it becomes inclusive. He should learn a few tips from when India got into a crisis in 1991. One of our best economic minds, Manmohan Singh, brought about a paradigm shift in India's economic policy that is leading to India being one of the fastest growing economies today. So the basic seeds were sown in 1991 as one big ticket reform. And when Mohammad Yunus got the Nobel Prize, Manmohan Singh was the first to congratulate him and also say that India has so much to learn from you. I think here is a case for a reversal. It is time that Yunus picks up few threads from the India growth story right from 1991 onwards and looks at Bangladesh from a resurrection point of view. Krishna, you would remember that Bangladesh for quite some time was seen as an island of hope and growth and prosperity, especially not just from pure play economic numbers, but also from the socio-economic indicators. It scored really well, and at times people would talk about India having to learn from Bangladesh on managing its socio-economic indices vis-a-vis growth. So in that sense, there is a challenge we have. Indian exporters being hit, there are massive repercussions of Bangladesh getting extremely vulnerable economically. Moody's has downgraded Bangladesh, as you know. The banks are very fragile. My worry is pressure on domestic debt will increase, and also the banking system has a bigger risk because most of the loans that would have been farmed out in the Sheikh Hasina regime have a difficulty of not being serviced in the next few days. And all global watchdogs in that sense, from an IMF to a Moody's to a rating agencies, they are not too sure about Yunus's capability, to actually execute his commitment to bring about a reform in Bangladesh.
Right, the moment a country goes into crisis, these days, the way the global economy is, the focus always ends up being on the economic ties. And in that sense, I want to ask, Bangladesh also became a crucial strategic place for manufacturers across the world. The kind of factories that Bangladesh was able to sell, all your designer clothes that Bangladesh was making. In that sense, there could be, then many exporters, who are looking to say move out of Bangladesh because of the situation coming into India as well.
Well, I mean, that situation is possible, and first and foremost, Bangladesh's own economy, if it gets into trouble vis-a-vis manufacturing as a per se, one particular division, which was its strongest point in terms of textiles. I mean, I remember having, going to Sri Lanka and picking up a shirt, it was made in Bangladesh. So, that's the story which might not run that far now. Yes, economically vulnerable Bangladesh means bad news for India.
Economically vulnerable Bangladesh is bad news for India, but what do you think India needs to do at this stage to ensure that the impact of whatever happens in Bangladesh is kept to minimal or nil because at the end of the day, India has its own growth path to follow, irrespective of whether its cross-border trade with Bangladesh goes up or goes down. So India will need to find alternatives to all that it's been doing with Bangladesh.
Krishna, the good news is that in this spectrum of bad news, the good news is that Vikram Misri, the foreign secretary, is scheduled to go to Bangladesh on 9th. I think, apart from the minorities attack issue, which is on the political side, I think high on table should be, ideally, and I'd guess it would be, the economic issues. India must sustain its economic interest in Bangladesh and not abandon it. So there would be a short-term hit, like we know what's happening with Adani's on the power, generation company. And it's up for review from the the Bangladeshi side, and it is also a issue of non-payment for the services rendered. So I think there's need for not a suicidal kind of a reaction. People should stay put, stay invested. All Indian companies, whether it's exporters, manufacturers, service-led companies which are active in Bangladesh, and India has invested as one particular unit in Bangladesh over the last so many decades, they should stay put, take the hit in the interim. And the government of India, in the meantime, should try and bring about bridging the gap that has happened, unfortunately, in the last few months. While Mohammad Yunus, the caretaker interim head, should announce elections, because see, Bangladeshis have equally right to democracy, and that is the first big step which will bring about that confidence, restore that confidence in the international community led by India.
Restore confidence in the international community. India is the voice of the global south, and in that sense, India, it'll after a point, the world will look upon India to manage the situation as the voice of the global south.
Absolutely. I think India has to play a stellar role. It is hit in the interim, as I said, because it has a right to protect minorities, and the global community and the leadership should articulate its concern more vociferously than it is doing right now. Barring Donald Trump, who was the first, even before he was elected, he had articulated his pain and anguish. I think all what I call the I5, the big P5 countries, should step up pressure on Mohammad Yunus to really be noble that he is awarded for.
Right. All right, we'll leave it at that. We're completely out of time over here. Rakesh Khar, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us and helping us understand how the Bangladesh crisis has a strong impact on India's economy and how it can be avoided. And with that, we're out of time here. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishnakumar signing off.
Thank you, Krishna.